Hello everybody. Welcome back into another edition of Prime Sports World, coming to you on a Thursday, baby. And I hope you're thirsty for some NBA knowledge, because we're going to talk a little bit about the all seasons for the Dallas Mavericks and the Miami Heat. And we're also going to talk about this interesting report about Quince Snyder that's been going around, making it surface around the internet. I'm with David Huppin right there, CEO of Prime Sports with Mr. Israel Rivera. And we are Prime Sports World. If you're looking for consistent content on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Prime Sports World is a pretty good place to hang out. We go live 6 or 7 times a week, bring you the most up-to-date content. I'm also going to drop our StreamYard link into all of the places. So if you want to join us, talk some NBA action, please feel free to join us on any of those platforms and talk some NBA stuff. We would love to have you on the show. But yeah, obviously you got to keep your comments, PG to yourselves. Please like, share, and subscribe to the show. It helps build up our brand so we can bring you guys even more content. Izzy, man, how are you, buddy? What's the good word, my friend? By the way, if you have missed us on Facebook, if we have missed us on Facebook, we are finally back on the Facebook.
Oh, we're back. We're back. Zuckerberg couldn't keep us down for long, baby. Couldn't keep us down for long. And you want to know something? We got the money on the table tonight, baby. The money's on the table. NBA Finals starts tonight. But we're going to talk about those teams that got eliminated that didn't make the finals.
Yep. Yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit about those NBA teams that didn't make the NBA Finals. We're gonna talk a little bit about them today. We're also the Utah Jazz. An interesting report coming out of Utah. The latest stuff going on there. We're gonna talk about that a little bit as well. So let's jump right into it. First of all, let's talk about the Miami Heat and their offseason preview. So they finished the season 53-29. Obviously, they lost in the Eastern Conference Finals. They have 2 notable key free agents. They got PG Tucker, who has a player option at like $7.5 million. And then they got Victor Oladipo, who is completely unrestricted. There are a little bit of the rumors there that could be a Tyler Hero extension on the landscape. We're curious to see what he's actually worth, given that when he has been a starter for the Miami, he hasn't been particularly good, and he was bad in this playoff series the last 2 years, but really since the bubble. They could potentially look to trade for another star. They have some Duncan Robinson cap space that they could move to another star. They have no cap space. They do have the mid-level exception. They have the non-taxpayer biannual exception, and then they have a trade exception as well. It doesn't expire until February. Also, this team had absolutely no cap space in 2019 or 2021. Still landed Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry in those off seasons. They have the 27th pick in this year's draft. If you're Miami, what should be your goals here for this offseason?
If I'm Miami, goal is to make sure that these guys, these young stars like Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, take a step up, right? They've been in the NBA Finals before in the bubble. They've been to the Eastern Conference Finals twice now. I know Tyler Hero had the hamstring injury. I was highly critical of him in these playoffs because he just didn't flat out play well in these playoffs. But I'll give him a little bit of a leeway because he had the hamstring injury, and that's a hard injury to play through, as everybody knows. I don't know what the heck happened with Duncan Robinson. They're paying him a lot of money to not do anything for them.
He basically completely fell out of the rotation. They're paying him upwards of $17 million to basically ride the pine. Like I don't really understand that.
Yeah.
I get it. He's a defensive liability, but you knew that when you signed him. Like it wasn't like all of a sudden, like breaking news. All of a sudden, hey, he's a terrible defender. No, you knew that when you signed him to that big extension. Like you knew he wasn't. He was a liability on the outside of the football, on the court.
As much as I love, and PJ Tucker has a player option, so he's probably going to opt in. But as much as I love PJ Tucker, he's definitely an offensive liability. He doesn't give you much on the offensive end. As we saw in Game 7, he barely even played.
Yeah, that's definitely true. But I think there's a culture there that Miami's trying to build.
Reports that him and Jimmy don't really see. So Victor Oladipo, unrestricted free agent. We hear reports that him and Jimmy don't really see eye to eye too much, but they do coexist. That's a guy that I would, if I'm Miami, I try to maybe throw, maybe a 1 year, a short-term deal at him. Maybe, hey, let's run it back. You're healthy. You can be a very integral part to the rotation, or even you can start. I would start Victor Oladipo over whoever the hell they had at point guard. Was it Gabe Vincent that they were starting at? And I love Max Strus. Max Strus is a tough two-way player out of DePaul, Illinois boy, shout out. And, if I'm Miami, I just look at those two stars, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, how they're going to take the next level. And then with the 27th pick in the draft, you're not going to get they need a center, okay? They need size. Bam is the only guy that, they have size. So maybe swinging a trade maybe for Rudy Gobert might be something that they can look into. Maybe drafting the kid from Auburn, not Jalen Smith, but the other kid, Walker Kessler.
I don't think that dude's going to be there at 27. But that's interesting.
You don't think he'll be around that range. And to trade up, he's a shot blocking machine. He's probably the best defender in college basketball, Walker Kessler. So when I look at Miami, that's their team need. They need size up front. Bam needs help. They need a shot blocker. Swinging a trade for Rudy Gobert, probably. Maybe going to draft one of those shot blockers late in the draft.
I gotta be totally honest with you. Their problems with this particular the way they're built right now is not on defense. It's their offense. They literally, Jimmy Butler is their only go-to scorer on the entire roster. Bam Adebayo basically disappeared in the playoffs, at least in certain games against the Celtics, and was basically ineffective. They need a secondary scorer to complement Jimmy Butler. Until they get that, they're going to be stuck in this kind of position. Like, they're going to be good because they play good defense. This is exactly like those Tom Thibodeau teams. Like, the Tom Thibodeau teams played elite defense, and then they made it really hard to score against. But when you finally bog them down in the playoffs, they struggle.
And I agree with you to a point, but at the same time, they have more offense than those Bulls teams, the Tom Thibodeau teams. Tyler Hero's
barely.
He averaged 20 a game this year. He averaged 20 a game this year. Bam can score.
But he's
Bam can score. He scored 20.
In one game. Please stop it. In one game. Like, we need to see more consistent play.
He scored 20 in the game 7. No, but he scored 20 and 10 in the game 7. But you're all right. Like I said, Victor Oladipo, he's kind of a shell of himself in a way. All the injuries kind of caught up to him. Kyle Lowry, kind of a shell of himself. He's on the down end of his career.
It's true.
Only reason I say they need a center, a shot blocking center, somebody to anchor down, is because Bam looks like Bam is down there by himself, and I understand if they have a
sure, but a shot blocking center. You broke up there a little bit, so I'm going to pick it up from here. Like, I get that, but I think you can get those guys using your big.
Everything else can fall into place. A threat for that team.
I think their defense, I think, is fine. I think the offensive side of this basketball team is what it needs to be worked on.
What I'm asking you, David, is what offensive player is out there in free agency or that they can trade for that makes it worth it?
Bradley Beal.
Packaging up a deal.
Bradley Beal.
But who are you going to trade for him, though? Now you're going to have to give up somebody off the bench. You're going to have to give up Tyler Hero. You might have to give up
Tyler Hero. I'll give up Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson. Maybe this pick we have in this year's draft, Gabe Vincent. Maybe that's enough. I mean, if Bradley Beal's like, yo, I'm gonna go. Like, I give him Max Strus. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Just find enough assets to make the money work. This team desperately needs a second scoring option off of this team. I think the Rudy Gobert thing is interesting. I think that would be a plan B if it comes to it. But I think this team should be prioritizing potentially trading for Bradley Beal. Tyler Hero is a fine player, but when you put him in the starting lineup, his numbers are not good at all. Is it because he's playing against better competition, or just because his numbers just look like that? But it's just he doesn't put up good numbers when he starts on this team. And in the playoffs, and especially the last 2 years, I understand he had the hamstring injury. And he was kind of fighting his way to come back from that, but he didn't play particularly well in this playoffs. And you have salary that you can kind of like you package Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, Gabe Vincent, maybe Max Strus, and you get Bradley Beal. You basically have to trade all your pieces basically for Bradley Beal, and I think you go for the home run. You keep Victor Oladipo, you sign him to your mid-level exception.
That would make sense. That would make sense. So we bring Victor Oladipo, bring him off the bench, slide him in the Tyler Hero spot, bring him back. But does Washington do that? That's what I'm saying. And does Washington want to do that? And a lot of guys in there, like Max Strus,
they wouldn't have a choice.
If
Bradley Beal came up to them and was like, "Yo, I want to go to Miami," they would have to find a way, because he could just walk for nothing. Like, because Miami doesn't have any cap room, right? So they can't just outright sign Bradley Beal. They would have to facilitate a sign and trade, which, I think that is probably what's going to happen here. I mean, they're going to do a sign and trade. I think Bradley Beal is eventually going to sign and trade somewhere else anyways, because Miami just doesn't have the cap space to outright sign him. And then they can go over the cap to bring Victor Oladipo back. This is assuming PJ Tucker opts into his money, because I'm not totally sure he will, because he's 37 years old, and this may be his last contract he gets in the NBA.
You said that too. That's PJ Tucker.
Yeah, PJ Tucker.
Yeah,
like he's 37 years old. Like, he may opt out of that contract. I mean, I also could see Zach LaVine being another guy. Zach LaVine could be another guy that's like, hey, I want to go to Miami, Chicago, facilitate a sign and trade. Like, the Bulls wouldn't have a choice. They would have to find a way. Like, if these players have decided that they're going to go somewhere, right?
Unrestricted free agent.
Yeah, but if they decided that they want to play somewhere, it's been pretty well sold. Like, Miami hasn't had cap room the last 2 years, but yet they sign players every year somehow.
That's the Pat Riley effect right there. Everybody wants to go play for Pat Riley. So, and then you got other guys out there that aren't so happy. Let's look at maybe a Damien Lillard, who has a couple years left on his contract as well. That could be something that they could look at.
Yeah, sure.
Is John Wall an upgrade over Kyle Lowry?
No.
What about John Wall?
I don't think so.
I would look at John Wall. You've been sitting in Houston for 2 years. You should be healthy.
Yeah, but
I'm just looking at different options.
But Kyle Lowry, you still have to match $44 million with the salary, and in order to do that, you have to, and you also have the Houston Rockets would also have to.
I'm just throwing names out there.
Yeah, John Wall's not a bad name. I think that would be interesting at least.
Yeah.
But this roster, if they come back with this same team next year, I think they will be probably bounced in the playoffs early as well. They may get to the conference finals again, but this team is just not good enough from top to bottom to really compete against the upper echelon of teams. You look at their playoff run. I mean, they played against in the first round. They played against Atlanta, he kind of stunk on defense, and they kind of just gave up whatever they wanted. They took on the Philadelphia 76ers, who basically didn't have their best player for 2 games in the series, and it was basically over at that point. And then against Boston, I mean, that series should have been probably down 4-1 at one point in that series. Like, I think that some of those games were obviously outside of the blowout games, but I mean, Donovan Mitchell's another name. Dwayne Wade is now part owner of the Utah Jazz. Do you think maybe he wants to help out his former team, like sending Donovan Mitchell to Utah if they decide to blow up everything? I doubt
Utah makes that.
I mean, I
doubt Utah does that.
Donovan Mitchell still has a few years left on his deal, so I mean, there are a lot of possibilities where they could try to increase this, because their half-court offense is at times difficult to watch.
Absolutely, and they play super slow in the NBA, and they probably have one of the slowest paces in the league. The Miami Heat do. So they do need somebody next to Jimmy. I mean, he played 48 minutes in Game 7. He looked downright exhausted, when he took that 3-pointer. I think in the back of his head, I don't want to take this game to OT. And it was 50-50, good, bad shot, depending on where you're looking at it from. But he definitely does need the help. And he's not getting it from, the guys we mentioned. Tyler Hero, he wasn't getting it consistently in the Eastern Conference Finals from Bam Adebayo. Bam only had, one game? Maybe?
Yeah, one game where he was, he basically showed up, I guess.
Yeah.
As cruel as that says, but yeah, he did.
And then the rest of the guys are a ragtag bunch. Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, Duncan Robinson, even though you're paying Duncan Robinson upwards of $17 million a year to sit on the bench and not do anything.
So they
do have some.
So we'll see. I guess we'll see what happens. I mean, Miami, this is a destination team, so players have usually been willing to take less money to go and play in Miami. It's been pretty well documented that if you want to go to Miami, they'll take less money. They'll figure out a sign and trade. Like Zach LaVine, Bradley Beal, all of these guys could have been in Miami, even though they have no cap space to make that happen. Miami's been the one team that has been able to do, and other teams are. The Bulls did that same thing last year too. I mean, they didn't have any cap space either, and yet they signed 2 big-time players somehow. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But Chicago has never really been a free agent destination.
What do you do with Tyler Hero? What do you do about his extension? He's eligible for like a 5-year, $120 million extension. Do you give it to him? Yes or no?
No, I don't give him that extension because I want to see him do it again. I want to see him average 20 a game again. Maybe that was just this year. And what if he gets that money and then now all of a sudden he's a 15-point per game scorer? We're not paying for that. We're paying for somebody top premium.
I tend to agree with you on that. I think Tyler Hero, because I mean, you're basically going to be paying like nearly $20 million for a bench player. I just don't think that's worth it. So we'll see. I don't know. I think Tyler Hero is their best trade chip. So if they wanted to get a Bradley Beal or Damien Lillard or even Zach LaVine, Tyler Hero is their best trade chip. He's on a team-friendly contract right now, so we'll see what happens. Moving on from Miami,
I agree.
Swinging into the Dallas Mavericks, 52-30 last season, lost in the Western Conference Finals. Obviously, their only key free agent is Jalen Brunson. They have some other guys, but none of them not really matter here. Jalen Brunson is unrestricted after Dallas kind of fumbled up his contract situation. There is potential trades for another star. They have Rudy Gobert, Bradley Beal, anyone else you can probably name is going to be involved in some sort of conversation when it comes to the Dallas Mavericks. Dwight Powell, Davis Bertans' contract could be used in a trade. And then they have no cap space. Sign and trade could be an option. They also have Tim Hardaway's contract, which they could look to move in some sort of sign and trade. They have the 26th pick in this year's draft, which they can't technically trade unless they make the pick and then trade the player. It's a whole complicated situation because they owe next year's pick to New York still for the Chris Porzingis trade.
And I'm sorry if I'm delayed or if we're delayed, guys. There's some type of lag on this podcast. So I do apologize about that. When it comes to the Dallas Mavericks, Jalen Brunson, he's going to get paid, right? Now, do you pay him? He's an unrestricted free agent. Do you pay him? And they're in line for some of the guys that we mentioned, like you said, Rudy Gobert, Bradley Beal, possibly a Donovan Mitchell. If you line them up with Luka, and then maybe you can sign Jalen Brunson back. I mean, you got a Western Conference final contending team. I wouldn't say finals contending team because there's certain players they have guys that are role players, but they don't have guys that can create their shot. Dorian Finney-Smith can't create his own shot. Maxi Kleber can't create his own shot. Who's the other guy? The hair doesn't move. David Bertans can't create his own shot. Reggie Bullock can't create his own shot. So you got a whole bunch of guys that are standstill shooters, and they just wait for Luka to bounce, dribble. And it worked once they got rid of Kristaps Porzingis, because remember we used to always complain about Luka always keeping the ball, dribbling, and trying to create. And Kristaps was like, where's the damn ball? I need the ball sometimes too, right? Well, it kind of worked once they got rid of Kristaps Porzingis, got him off to Washington, and they kind of settled in all those role players in the rotation. That it worked, and so you've seen it work. But now you're seeing they lost in 5 games to the Golden State Warriors. I mean, a lot of teams would have lost. I mean, the Golden State Warriors are on a I don't want to say a historic pace, but they're on a high efficiency pace. They're scoring the most in the offense in the playoffs right now. So a lot of teams would have lost to Golden State. A lot of teams will lose to Golden State. Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. So in that position, so they do need to trade for that. If I'm going to say if this team needs to trade for an offensive player that can create his own shot, it's them too. And I don't know if they're, another, like I said, Damien Lillard. I mean, I know he's pretty unhappy in Portland, and he probably wants to go play for a contender. You got Bradley Beal signing a trade, Zach LaVine signing a trade, Rudy Gobert. They definitely need a center. They don't have any size down there to protect the paint. The only thing with Rudy Gobert, he's just worth too much money. He doesn't put the ball in the basket enough, right? So, and then they don't have any cap space. So, and then they're in the same boat, right? 26 pick in the draft. What are they going to get? Huh? They're going to get a role player.
They need somebody who can protect the rim at the elite level. How about this as like an ideal offseason? So they bring back Jalen Brunson at some sort of reasonable number. Let's call it like $15 million a year, okay? I actually think he's going to sign for a lot more than that. But let's call it $17 million a year, and then they sign Yusuf Nurkic to be their 5-man for this group, and then they do a sign and trade for Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine ends up becoming the shooting guard of the future for this team. There's reports out of Chicago that they don't really want to give him a max because he seems to be deferring to DeMar DeRozan too much last season, which is probably true. But yeah, I think in a Dallas situation where you could a little bit of the pressure be off Zach LaVine, and Luka is clearly the guy. I mean, Zach LaVine, Jalen Brunson, Yusuf Nurkic, that's a pretty solid 5 right there. Like you put in whoever you want to fill in the rest of the roster with. I mean, that's pretty solid. Zach LaVine would require.
My problem with Nurkic is that he can't
stay healthy.
Oh, my problem with Yusuf Nurkic is that he can't stay healthy, and he's not really known to be a rim protector.
That's true.
He's an offensive big body. He's an offensive guy. He's got offensive skills. I mean, before Nikola Jokic was there in Denver, Yusuf Nurkic was supposed to be the man, right? Before Nikola Jokic, and they were kind of on the same trajectory offensively, but
Yusuf Nurkic
doesn't have that defensive prowess like a Rudy Gobert, like they need.
Yeah, Yusuf Nurkic was a first-round pick for Dallas or for Denver the same season that they drafted Jokic.
Yeah. So when I look at Dallas, yeah, that may work offensively, but then they kind of lose defensively because Zach isn't the greatest perimeter defender as well. He's strictly one. I mean, we saw some improvements last year, team defensive wise. His mindset changed a little, but he's strictly an offensive player. He doesn't scare me to lock down the other team's best offensive shooting guard, if that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So I mean, that could work. That could get you back to the Western Conference Finals. That could get you back to the Western Conference Finals. But we're looking to go past the Western Conference Finals.
I mean, but does it make you a legit contender? I don't know about that. I don't think it's enough.
I don't think that what you suggested is going to be enough with Zach LaVine, especially with the teams that are going to come back healthy next year. We're assuming that the Clippers are going to come back healthy with Kawhi Leonard. We're assuming Jamal Murray is going to come back healthy with the Denver Nuggets. We're assuming that the Pelicans are going to take another step up with Zion Williamson coming back. So you got teams that are coming back here in the Western Conference that are going to push. I mean, Phoenix, we don't know what's going to happen with the DeAndre Ayton situation. Now that's the guy right there that if I'm Dallas, I might be picking up the phone with Phoenix, and I'm like, hey, what do you want for DeAndre Ayton? Because he can give you both on both ends. I'd rather have DeAndre Ayton than Yusuf Nurkic.
Man, I would be shocked if something like that happened because Phoenix would have to facilitate a sign and trade with Dallas when they could easily just match whatever Dallas signs them to. I would be legitimately shocked if that happened.
But it's in the realm of possibilities. And so when I look at some of the two-way centers in here, I mean, if you're looking at Yusuf Nurkic, if you're looking at Brad, Yusuf Nurkic is going to give you something offensively, nothing defensively in a way. Rudy Gobert is going to get you all defense, but he ain't going to give you much offensively, and you're going to pay a pretty penny for him. And then
the lobs between Luka and Gobert would be really nice. Like that would be seriously a dominant offense. Like that would throwing up lobs to Rudy Gobert from Luka would be outstanding. And I mean, they could always go the cheap route. I mean, Serge Ibaka is out there. They could go Serge Ibaka. I mean, they could go a Robin Lopez type route of players, defensive minded bigs that can, fill in the gaps.
Well, we saw Dallas when they won the championship with their Hall of Fame core, right? Dirk, the Matrix, Jason Kidd, and you had who was the center, right? Tyson Chandler.
Yeah, Tyson Chandler.
And so you're looking. You don't really need a dominant guy to possibly put the ball in the hoop. You just need somebody like I like the Rudy Gobert. I like Rudy Gobert over everybody in this situation. Honestly, I mean he fits with Miami. He fits with what Dallas needs. He fits more with Dallas, in my opinion. I think that's what you kind of need. And I think when you're looking at a guy to anchor, you're looking at a guy that's going to play two ways and not, he doesn't have to be overwhelmingly, like a Joel Embiid. He don't have to be Joel Embiid, or he doesn't have to be Nikola Jokic, but he just needs to be able to, have great rim protection, have great pick and roll defense, and be great in the pick and roll with Luka Doncic to catch those lobs at the rim.
So something else I kind of like, also, when we went to the Miami Heat, all of these people that think that Joel Embiid is going to end up in Miami, he's not even eligible to be traded until next offseason. Like once you sign one of those max extensions, you have to wait a year before you can get traded. So all the people are like, oh, Joel Embiid is going to be in Miami next year. Just stop it. It's not happening. I also like JaVale McGee is another guy who could be a cheap option who's 34 years old now. Colin Sexton is somebody that the Mavericks could get in a sign and trade that I don't think would cost them all that much money, like contract wise or like return wise. I think they could even get it done with Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans for Colin Sexton. And that would be something extremely interesting to put next to Luka, a guy who can score at will. I mean, we're talking about a guy who was a 26-point scorer a couple years ago before he got hurt last season.
And still sign Jalen Brunson?
Yeah.
If you get Colin Sexton?
Yeah, I would. I mean, put a 3-guard lineup out there of
Luka,
Colin.
That works because Colin Sexton doesn't need, he's not a pure point guard, he's a combo guard. And we saw that in Cleveland. He worked really well with Darius Garland before he went down with the knee injury. Colin Sexton's a nice pick. But I think if I'm Dallas, if I'm gonna take a hunch on what Dallas is gonna do, they're gonna try and re-sign Jalen Brunson. They're gonna try and move around some of those guys. They're gonna try and trade for Rudy Gobert to get some size and to get a legit big man to put with Luka. They tried it with Kristaps Porzingis. It didn't work. For some reason, Kristaps likes to pee on the perimeter too much. Well, Rudy Gobert is going to pick and roll. He's going to go for that lob, and that's what Luka is looking for. So I'm looking at that. And if they can do a sign and trade for Colin Sexton, you're talking about a top 3, top 4 team in the Western Conference for like the next 4 years.
Yeah, but I don't think they'll be able to do both of those things. Like they'd have to pick one. They wouldn't. They don't have the cap room or even the. There's no way to make it work. I love the Rudy Gobert in Dallas. I mean, one of their big problems was like when we watched that Golden State series. Like once players got beat off the dribble, there was nothing to protect the rim. Like people were just like Kelly Thompson was just at will at the rim. Like they didn't have the necessary pieces to really reestablish. Like Rudy Gobert would fix a lot of that problems. He would be able the rim protected that they need. And yeah, I think that's an interesting way to go. 26 overall in the draft. They need to get another scorer. I think they also need a rim protector to, add some depth to the 5 positions, especially if they trade away Dwight Powell or Davis Bertans. They're going to have to find a way to fill out the rest of this roster.
Who would be there around 26? I mean, I know I talked about Walker Kessler, the kid, the ACC Defensive Player of the Year from Duke. That kid, the centers might be there.
You talking about Williams?
Williams is his name? Yeah, Williams. Yeah, Williams might be there.
Oh, dude, I've seen that.
Golly.
I've seen mocks of that dude in the first round, like in the top 15. Like I would be shocked if he's still there at 16 or 26.
I mean, you never know. I mean, with some of these guys, and then also Jovic, the overseas guy.
Yeah,
there's a couple of Ignite guys that might be around there. Huh?
Yeah, you're talking about the Nikola Jokic. It's like spelled like one letter different from Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, Nikola Jovic. Yeah, he might be around there. He's kind of slid late. into that late slot. But at 26, like I said, they're not going to get they're not going to get a premier scorer. They're going to get a role player, coming down. And I mean, even looking at a guy, maybe I know Randall Moore is looking like to get picked in the early second round, but he's a guy, E.J. Liddell from Ohio State might be right there at 26. They can use a guy like E.J. Liddell, very versatile, two-way defender, can put the ball in the hoop, can guard 1 through 4.
So I guess we'll see.
Dallas has got a lot. And also at 26, Ochai Agbaji from Kansas might be there too. So you think he's gonna be going in the top 15?
Yeah,
We'll see.
So Dallas has got some decisions to make this offseason. We'll see how they end up unfolding. Let's move on to our final story of the day. Quince Snyder possibly out in Utah. Adrian Wojnarowski, the Woj reports that Quince Snyder could lead the team after 8 seasons this summer. Jazz offered Snyder a 2-year extension, but his current deal expires in 2024. It has an a coach option for 23-24. Snyder currently recovering from a hip injury. Snyder has a 372 record and 264 record in 8 seasons with the Jazz. Under the Jazz, the Jazz have the conference's longest playoff postseason streak at 6 years, but failed to advance to the conference finals in any of those seasons. Snyder and Steve Kerr are tied for the 3rd longest tenure as coach with a team at 8 years. It also sounds like the Jazz really want to keep Quince Snyder, but he doesn't seem like he wants to remain the coach of this team moving forward. So what do you think? Danny Ainge has basically said that Quince Snyder has not told him if he wants to even come back this season and coach the team for this season. So what ends up happening here with Quince Snyder?
Godly, man. Coach like this, I mean, he's another guy. I'm not sure. I don't think the Utah faithful aren't unhappy with him. I think they're like, okay, they're used to long tenure coaches. I mean, Jerry Sloan was there forever, and he took them. He took them to 2 finals appearances, some Western Conference Finals appearances. Especially when he had Carmelo, John Stockton, and Carlos Boozer, Darren Williams. They went to 1. So that city they don't mind keeping Quince Snyder. I don't think he's necessarily the issue in Utah. I think it's a personnel issue in terms of what they have around Rudy Gobert, what they had around Donovan Mitchell. The Mike Conleys, the O'Neal. Bogdanovich is a nice player, but is he a guy that's going to get you to the Western Conference Finals? I don't think so.
No.
So, it's a personnel issue, I think, in Utah. With this guy, I think with Quince Snyder, I think he's the type of guy, I think he may come back, but it just depends on his person. I hate these kind of stuff because it's like we don't know what he's thinking, right? So if he's recovering from a hip surgery, that hurts. We saw Steve Kerr with the back injury, where he basically missed 3/4 of the season, right, or like half of the season at one point, right? And he came back. It's all about what Quince Snyder wants, right, and what he thinks that he can be able to do, and how much pain he is, how much, and what stress, what kind of mind state he is in terms of like the roster coming back, in terms of, hey, do I even want to be here? Do I want to walk the silence? Do I want to take a year off? Do I want to go back to the college ranks? Because he did come, if I'm not mistaken, Quince Snyder came from Missouri, right, if I'm not mistaken, right? So, and then he was under Coach Bud for a little bit. But like I said, it just all depends. We don't know what he's thinking. I don't know what reports came out as to, what he said to any journalist. And usually guys like this maybe, throw hints out there, but we just haven't seen it. And I think all of it is just speculation, in my opinion. So I'm 50-50. I really don't know, honestly, what he's going to do.
So he coached Missouri from 99 to 2006 before he went to the Austin Toros. He was an assistant coach for the Sixers, Lakers, team in Moscow, the Atlanta Hawks, and then he's been the Utah Jazz coach for 2014. My honest opinion, I think that I think if Utah, you obviously want to keep Quince Snyder. Like, you obviously want him to continue to be the coach of this team. But if you're Quince Snyder and you look at what the potential landscape of this team is going to be, do you want to be like, if they have another playoff run that doesn't maybe go so well, do you want to be the scapegoat that they're going to go to? Because they're not going to blame Donovan Mitchell and they're not going to blame Rudy Gobert. Both those guys are locked up long term. It's going to fall into the shoulders of Quince Snyder. And do you want to just be like, you know what? I'm just going to step away from this while I still have, a good standing in the coaching, because I don't want to be one of those guys that gets one job and then never. Even though I think if Quince Snyder was to get fired, I think there would be interest immediately from other teams in the NBA that would look to be hiring Quince Snyder because he's an excellent X&O's coach. He's an excellent basketball coach. But if I'm him and the hip injury, I think it's something severe. Like he had, hip surgery. Maybe he wants to take a year off and just kind of, work through that pain and, work through whatever he needs to do. But the Quince Snyder camp has been dead silent. Like, you have not literally heard anything. But apparently, if I'm I think that they're going to.
I haven't heard anything in reports either.
Yeah, so
and if they do, and if he does decide, hey, I'm not gonna go forward. I'm gonna take a year off of Utah, and I'm just gonna play out the landscape and see what jobs I'm gonna get healthy and see what opens up next season. I think that's a very remote possibility, but like I said, it's all speculation. He hasn't really come out and said anything yet.
Yeah, so I think it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening because, when I first read this report, it made it sound like maybe the Utah Jazz were looking to move off of him, but no, it's for sure like this is Quince Snyder's decision. Like, if Quince Snyder wants to be the coach of the Utah Jazz, he will be. If he does not want to be the head coach of the Utah Jazz, he won't be. It has nothing to do with the front office. Like, they would welcome him back with open arms. But it's Quince Snyder. If he wants to, I think the hip injury is worse than he's letting it be, and I think he wants to have a recovery time. My honest opinion, I think he will not be the coach of this team next year. They will have to find somebody to be the coach of this team next year. It won't be Quince Snyder. But yeah, let us know down in the comment section what you think about this situation with Quince Snyder. Do you think he's going to be leaving Utah? Do you think he's coached his last game as the head coach of the Utah Jazz? We'd love to hear from you guys. Also, let us know what you think about any of your other topics with the Dallas Mavericks and the Miami Heat. Any final thoughts before we wrap up here today, man?
No, you know what? No, I'm gonna sit back and watch Golden State throw a party in the Bay Area, okay, tonight. So, anybody want to play third best, go ahead and do it. You got 10 minutes.
I'm also taking Golden State to win. I don't know if you saw in our preview show, I picked Golden State to win this in 5 games. So,
gentleman sweep. I said the same thing, a gentleman sweep. So, like I said, those two teams have very bright futures. They just have to do some tweakings to the roster. That's it.
Totally agree with you on that. I've been David Huppin right there, CEO of Prime Sports World, Mr. Israel Rivera. Thank you very much for joining us. Please like, share, and subscribe. We're all the places: YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook. And we're back on Facebook officially. It's been 30 days of 30 very long days, so hopefully you guys get able to tune into us on Facebook again. Thank you very much for joining us. And Mr. Rivera, what do we do here at the Prime, my friend?
We bring the heat, ladies and gentlemen. Bring the heat 24/7. And go ahead and like this. Go ahead and like our Prime Sports World page. We're dropping them controversial posts.
Maybe not super controversial, just PG controversial. Hey, but I'll see you later, man. You have a good night.
PG controversial, yes.
All right, peace out, brother. Go Warriors.
All right, guys.